I think the big question in this is how is the United States going to respond? With other words, there is pressure on the United States for it to crack down on Qatar. Qatar hosts the single largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. And there have been calls for sanctions against Qatar, U.S. sanctions, and the removal of that air base. If that happens, then obviously you're going to have a serious economic impact.
So what do you think? How do you think President Trump will decide? Saudi is indeed wanting to persuade the Trump administration to come down hard in Qatar.
Well, there are strong voices in favor of coming strong on Qatar. On the other hand, Rex Tillerson in Australia today called for a resolution of the conflict, offered to mediate, but also seemed to imply that the United States was sympathetic to the Saudi and UAE move. I suspect that the United States will try and pressure Qatar, and that moves to replace or move the U.S. base elsewhere or impose sanctions are going to be a last resort.
So how do you see this move? Let's take the worst case scenario that that actually happens and they go hard on Qatar. Economic implications not only to the Middle Eastern nations, but to the ones that do business with them.
Well, I think the question is going to be to what degree, and that hasn't happened either yet, to what degree are the Saudis going to try and make economic relations with Saudi Arabia, or for that matter with a country like the UAE, which economically is very important, to what degree they're going to make those relationships dependent on severing economic and commercial ties with Qatar. If they do that, then obviously that is going to have a significant impact, but it also will further polarize the Muslim world.
Well, Qatar is a major gas supplier and an economic commercial partner for the Philippines alone. It hosts a lot of overseas Filipino workers, as do the other Middle Eastern states. What sort of an impact do you think for jobs, security, as well as the safety of migrant workers in Qatar?
I think it's too early to tell. There are instances in the past that's happened with Thailand, that's happened with Yemen, where their workers were expelled from Saudi Arabia. In the case of Yemen, it was more than 1 million, because Saudi Arabia was unhappy with certain of their policies. Now, whether they're going to do this, try and exert the same kind of pressure now remains to be seen.
Okay, but when we look back in 2014, a similar effort by the Gulf states took place. I mean, this isn't the first time a Saudi-led campaign like this took place. So what is the difference between the one the Saudis imposed in 2014 and the one that it's imposing now that could pose as a risk for the migrant workers?
I think there are two major differences. One is the rise of the Salmans in Saudi Arabia, who feel the existential threat from Iran much more acutely than King Abdullah did, and therefore have stepped up what is a 40-year proxy war between the kingdom and Saudi Arabia very significantly. And this time round, the pressure on Qatar is far more ambitious. It aims to not only involve the Gulf states, who are grouped in the Gulf Cooperation Council, but the Muslim world, and it aims to persuade the United States to take, the Trump administration to take a stand. So this is a much more ambitious initiative, and it also means that the pressure on Qatar is greater. And it means that the Saudis, this may only be the start of the campaign.
And indeed, investors are heading for the exits. Just take a look at the Qatari stock exchange, down over 6%. What will this ultimately mean for oil? We've seen a bump up in the price of oil since the Saudis made the announcement today.
I think that obviously it's going to have an impact on oil because you don't know what oil supplies are going to be. Although Qatar is not a major oil supplier, it's much more of a gas supplier. But it also creates uncertainty in the region. As the Saudis escalate their proxy war with Iran, the likelihood that is that Iran's not going to stand idly by. And so you could see repercussions among Shiite minorities, for example, in the Gulf, or Shiite majorities, as in the case of Bahrain.